Okay, guys, it's time to talk about subject-verb agreement. Let's start with the basics. Of course, you have to know what is the subject of a sentence. That would be who or what the sentence is about. I hope you know that. A verb is either going to be the action or the word that links something in the subject to something in the predicate. These two items, a subject and a verb, should be very easy for you to pick out in a sentence. If that is something that you struggle with, then you need to come and spend some time with me and let me help you. Very often with verbs, it's a memorization thing where you just have to be familiar with linking verbs and such. Action verbs should be obvious to you. But again, these two things I have to assume by 7th grade advanced language arts you know this. So moving on. Normal sentence order. In a sentence, you're going to have the subject and then the verb. So think sad, or you can think said. Sad meaning or standing for subject, action verb, and then direct object. Or it could also be subject, action verb, indirect, and then direct object. You're not always going to have an object in your sentence, but in most sentences, you are going to have the subject first and then the action verb. That's a normal sentence order. For example, he writes neatly in his agenda. See if you can find the subject and the verb. Okay, I hope that you chose he as the subject and writes as the verb. All right, let's look at the next one. The president speaks once a month. See if you can find the subject and verb. Okay, I hope you chose president as the subject and speaks as the verb. Okay, easy peasy. All right, that's the basics of it. Let's move on. Okay, things to memorize. For subject-verb agreement. What I just did was background information. Now we're moving to the agreement part of it. You need to know singular subjects take singular verbs. Plural subjects take plural verbs. That should just be obvious to you. It should make sense to you. There's nothing that should be confusing about that. Singular goes with singular, plural goes with plural. Okay, let that sink in for a moment. Because there are issues with present tense verbs. What happens is people can get confused with what is actually singular and what is actually plural, because nouns, their singularity and plurality looks different from a verb's singularity and plurality. So, yeah, those were some big words. All right, let's keep moving. In this one, this is an example of singular subject and a singular verb. Look at it. The cow, singular, jumps, and that's what we've been doing, over the moon. We've been doing that with our verb tenses. This should not be confusing to you that cow is singular and jumps with an S on it, yes, is singular. Singular goes with singular. Now let's look at the plural. The cows, and you should recognize that as plural, and that's going to go with the plural verb jump. Let that soak in. Yes, the S goes on a singular verb, but the S goes on a plural noun. That is why subject-verb agreement can be confusing. You just have to memorize this relationship, that it's going to be on the singular verb, but it's not going to be on the plural verb. The S is like it jumps, like the cow. It's going to jump from the verb to the subject to change from singular to plural. Okay? So, memorize this. Singular subjects take singular verbs, plural subjects take plural verbs, and the what it looks like to be singular and plural. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hit the first problem in agreement, and that is the location of the subject. Now, we just spoke about where the subject usually comes in a normal sentence order. Normal sentence is subject and then the verb. However, sometimes you might have a prepositional phrase between the subject and the verb. Okay? And then that can make it very confusing as to what verb you should choose. Please know and memorize this. A subject cannot be in a prepositional phrase. Never, ever, ever will a subject be in a prepositional phrase. It can't be because it already has a job if it's in a prepositional phrase. So it can't be both the subject and the object of the preposition. It can't do that. You can't be a subject and an object. So if it's the object of the preposition, it's not the subject. And so you need to be able to recognize prepositional phrases. So now might be a good time to go back and look over those prepositions, do the song again, and get those fresh in your mind. So let's look at our first example sentence. You've got these lines of the poem either describe or describes Chicago. Find the prepositional phrase. You should see that of the poem is a prepositional phrase. Okay, I want you to visually mark that out of your sentence. Now, tell me what the subject of the sentence is. You should immediately see lines as the subject because in normal sentence order, the subject comes first. So this is the subject of your sentence, and lines is plural. It already has an S. Oh, hey, look at that. Has an S, so I probably don't need one on my verb. Lines describe. There you go. Verb. Okay. A list of adjectives either is or are on the board. First off, I want you to mark out the prepositional phrases. There are 2 in this sentence, and so you should see of the adjectives as a prepositional phrase and on the board as a prepositional phrase. Mark it out. They are prepositional phrases. They will not help you in subject-verb agreement. So now, what do you have left? You have a list. So list is your subject, and that leaves your verb. List is singular, so we want the singular verb, which would be is. That's the verb. Okay? One more. The words over there echo or echoes popular speech. The prepositional phrase would be over there. We're going to mark it out. All right, and that leaves words as your subject. Words is plural because there is an S, so we're going to choose the word that does not have the S, the verb that does not have the S. Okay, so words echo. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Okay. Okay, problem of location of the subject. The next one is here and there will never be the subject of your sentence. Okay, they usually tell where in a sentence, and they will not be the subject. So if you have, and it also pushes the subject toward the end of your sentence. So please do not mark here or there ever as the subject of your sentence. Okay. In this sentence, here's not the subject, so mark it out, and that leaves the subject to be bathrooms. Bathrooms has an S on the end, so we are not going to choose is, we're going to choose are as our subject, okay? And then the third one, third and final for location of the subject, in a question, the subject comes between the helping verb and the main verb. So it's not going to be that normal sentence order. You would have, here's my helping verb in the parentheses. Here's my main verb here. So he would be the subject. He is singular. And so I'm going to need the singular verb does. He does have. It should sound right to you. In this one, the subject of the sentence is going to be they. Notice it's after my helping verbs. They is plural, so I'm going to choose my plural verb are going. Okay, this is one of the few times where there's no S involved on either end of the word, and that's okay. But you should know they is not right. They are is probably the only time that S rule does not work, but most of the time it does. Okay, so to recap, there are you need to know normal sentence order is usually the subject first and then the verb. You need to know that present tense singular verbs have an S on the end, and present tense plural verbs have no S. The S would be on the subject. Okay, the first problem is locating the subject, and within locating the subject you have three issues. You might have a prepositional phrase between the subject and the verb, and the subject cannot be in a prepositional phrase. You might have a sentence that begins with here or there, but those will not be the subject of your sentence. It would be after here or there, towards the end of the sentence. And then finally, in a question, the subject would come between the helping verb and the main verb. Okay? Memorize. Study, study. Au revoir.